Yoshikage Kira with the stand Killer Queen. I've gone over many characters and it's about time that I got to him, and I also finally figured out my formula so I know what to do now. So to cut down time for everyone, I'm just going to be including what solidifies him instead of including everything that's been done. So let's start this off with strength. On strength, there is not exactly the most to go off of, or well, there's really not much in general to go off of with Killer Queen and Kira because of how much they were actually around for in part 4. One of the most notable things that Killer Queen did directly was punching right through Koichi. You see this being a sign that a stand is above the certain majority in strength, but since there are too many stands that do it, we're going to be having to scale to get a general estimate to do so. Scaling to Crazy Diamond does you well if you just, knock Killer Queen a couple of pegs down. Of all the times that Kira fought both Jotaro and Josuke, well, he got whooped. So with how stands work, I kind of believe that Star Platinum was really just a bit rusty, and even if he did get weaker over time, he would just be around 5 or 10% less than he originally was. Debating on whether or not if Josuke truly blitzed him, which would put Josuke around or equal to the Star Platinum we see in part 4. And off of that, we see Killer Queen being weaker than both of them. So if Star Platinum and Crazy Diamond are in the 90s or 95%, Killer Queen has to be around 85%. In my Josuke video, I was throwing around percentages here and there just to show you the general estimate of what it would be, but this is actually the more real take on it. On the speed of Killer Queen, completely demolishing Echo Sack 3 was cool, but when scaling to Star Platinum and Crazy Diamond, it doesn't look as crazy. Despite both of those stands blowing him away, no pun intended, he was able to match Crazy Diamond for when Josuke wasn't fully out to kill, until, he just got bodied, and he blocked an unexpected attack from Star Platinum. The anime makes the block look a lot slower than expected versus the manga version, to where it looks like Jotaro was actually going for a swift chop at the neck at Kira, and it's also possible that it was just completely reactable since Jotaro was extremely damaged. Aside from that, he also deflects Josuke's Blood Blade and Glass Heart, which he learned how to shoot from Jotaro, but even then, being able to do considerably well against Crazy Diamond, like hand to hand, without getting instantly stomped, is a lot more to say than those two things mentioned. On durability, Kira seems to be as durable as the humans in JoJo can be, meanwhile Killer Queen is most likely as durable as it is strong. Like I said earlier, there's really not that much to go off for Killer Queen, especially since every fight we see Kira in, he's getting beat. With his intelligence, he gets a point on the board for Shigechi, and he also beat Koichi, so that's another point, but that same point for Shigechi is actually deducted for him against Stray Cat, so you can see what I'm getting at here. For Kira's stamina, he says it himself here. He was able to move across town in 3 minutes while there was basically a 100-pound weight bound to his hand dragging him down. I wouldn't take moving across town too literal, but I would also say that it wouldn't be too much of a surprise for Kira to be doing so. Sheer heart attack's range could totally do the distance, but it's just more about Kira being able to move that fast in 3 minutes. Now on Kira's intelligence. Kira, like the many stands in part 4, is more of a mental game player than a fighting game player. And, well, no, I don't mean that Kira plays fighting games. Well, and if he did, he would probably play Sheik and Smash, except for Brawl. In that case, he would probably play Meta Knight with more of a Mewtwo King playstyle where he wouldn't get touched. Kira's intelligence is what gets him by when it comes to DIU. He was able to stay under the nose of Morio for around 15 years and went completely undetected in that time. Or well, until Shigechi, who kickstarted everything. He's also a very strong manipulator with his charisma and being able to bait and outwit the other opponent consistently. There was when he had baited Shigechi into, well, basically blowing himself up. He flipped the situation of Okuyasu and Josuke against him to where he had used a Stray Cat air bomb against Josuke, but, well, Okuyasu directed it to himself, and then there was the whole baiting Koichi with the cult, but Jotaro was there to check Koichi on that. He's also extremely analytical with a great memory, and he's actually pretty good with numbers. He was able to calculate and determine the range that Josuke was from him, so he was able to use Stray Cat, and along with that, he was calculating Josuke's possible options with what the given situation gave him, basically. So Josuke got out of that with Double Crazy Diamond, but that's just more on Kira not thinking in the perspective of Josuke, and Josuke also being reasonably smart himself. I mean, obviously, a serial killer isn't that much for empathy, so of course he wouldn't be able to feel what he's feeling. Kira, all around in intelligence, has a strong grasp on analysis and probability to finish it up and, say the least. On lifting strength, well, we're going back to that thing. Kira had mentioned that he works out, and it shows. Plus, being able to move across town with 100 pounds on one hand is really nothing to play around with. On range, 2 meters. It's around, or at least the same as Crazy Diamond in terms of stats, so I would think that he would be just around here, and it would be a 1-to-1, especially since that was really the case with Jotaro and Dio, so, you know. So now that we cleared out the attributes of Killer Queen, we can get onto the abilities. Killer Queen's ability circulates around explosives. Now first there's the primary bomb, which is its first ability. This ability lets Killer Queen turn anything into a bomb, and by anything, well, it has to have some sort of physical form to do so. It turns Stray Cat's air bubbles into bombs, but the thing is that Stray Cat's air has some really odd physical properties, and it's a lot different than the air we breathe. Another thing about Kira's bombs is the speed of the explosion is actually the speed of the stand itself, which is a reason why you have Crazy Diamond being able to repair Hayato. So with that in question, that would mean that Killer Queen would have faster than light explosive speeds, and that alone should tell you about who could react to what. The potency of the primary bomb is also never truly in question, because whatever is made into a bomb is completely atomized, or well, also there's whatever makes contact with the bomb. Shigechi got the best case scenario for being near it, and even then he kind of got blown away. He also can choose the level of bomb that he wants because he's shown the capabilities for it. Kira could either silently atomize something or exploding it in the same loud way that he normally does. The second ability, or second bomb, is Killer Queen's Sheer Heart Attack. Sheer Heart Attack is an automatic bomb with large amounts of durability and range. This was a stand that only had a few cracks in it after its 5-star platinum, and I really don't know why I'm mentioning this because in hypothetical scenarios with other fictional characters, most can't see stands, and I've already explained where Sheer Heart Attack fares against the other stands in my villains video. Long story short, if you can keep Sheer Heart Attack down without making any contact at all, then you're fine. That's why Act 3 did so well. You could also possibly hacks out Sheer Heart Attack depending on which stand that you have going against it, but most likely not. There's only a few stands that I believe can possibly go against it and survive, or just completely outright beat it, so there that goes. The third and last ability of Killer Queen is its third bomb, Killer Queen Bites the Dust. A temporal bomb that has to be planted onto another person, and it only works when someone is revealing Kira's identity. After that's done, time loops back to 1 hour before the reveal of Kira's identity, or more importantly, the explosion. The thing is, in a point of strength, this really only works for the situation that Kira was in. Bites the Dust, god I love saying that, in a fight is nowhere near good, especially when it requires planting Killer Queen, which means Kira would have to go without a stand if it was planted onto someone, which is something that you need to do if you want to use Bites the Dust anyway. It's just how that works. You also don't want to plant Bites the Dust into the enemy in question, especially since Kira has to avoid hurting them anyways, so it just wouldn't be optimal. And all of that goes for that, so I think that I'm done here. One postscript thought, I'm not sure that Sheer Heart Attack could be functional while Bites the Dust is active, but I wouldn't hurt to believe that it could work, since I don't think it requires all of Killer Queen, obviously. It would only, like, Sheer Heart Attack is only in the left hand, so it's just like, well, why wouldn't we just let this go? So maybe not. Maybe that could work. Possibly not. So finishing this up here, Killer Queen is a reasonably strong stand, and I know that people would want it to be even stronger. The thing is, Kira isn't one to train, and Killer Queen is his stand. It's his personality. It works because of how Killer Queen is not really one for strength really, but more circulated around its ability. And the same goes for Kira. He's not exactly one for strength, but he does extremely well because he's playing the game around intelligence. So thank you all for watching. Comment for you want to see next. I have my plans as usual. I'm always down to listen. I think it's getting a little played out just continuously telling you guys what I'm going to be doing, because September I plan to do everything that I've had postponed, basically like the part 2s of everything. So plan to do that. Hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Until then, peace out and Godspeed.